Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa Rasulullah. We continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's The 99 Beautiful Names of God. Al-Maqsad al-Asna fi Sharh Asma Allah al-Husna. Translated by David Burrell and Nazih Dahir. We are on page 55. A question and its answer. Su'al wa jawabu. You might say, this is the entry on both Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. And so in that context, a question is answered. We might say, what does it mean for him, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Most High, to be merciful and to be the most merciful of those who are merciful, Arhamar Rahimin. For one who is merciful does not see people afflicted. Or injured, tormented, or sick, without hastening to remove that condition when he can do so. But the Lord, praise be to Him Most High, has the power to meet every affliction, to stave off every need and distress, to eliminate every sickness, and to remove every harm, even though He leaves His servants to be tried by disasters and hardships. While the world is overflowing with disease, calamities, and tribulations, yet He is able to remove them all. The answer: the merciful one certainly wants good for those for the one who receives mercy, yet there is no evil in existence which does not contain some good within it. And were that evil to be eliminated, the good within it would be nullified, and the final result would be an evil worse than the evil contained, the evil containing the good. The certain amputation of a hand is an evident evil, yet within it lies an ample good, the health of the body. If one were to forego the amputation of the hand, the body would perish as a result, a worse evil still. So amputating a hand for the health of the body is an evil which contains good within it, a necessary evil, if you will, or rather it is something good. If you think about the Quran says that you may detest something and it is good for you. It is you might detest it, but it is good for you. وَعَسَى أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. And in another verse, you might detest something, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will create so much good in it. So amputating a hand for the health of the body is an evil which contains good within it, but the primary intention which comes first in the consideration of one amputating is health, an unadulterated good. Yet since amputating the hand is the way to achieve it, amputation is intended for the sake of that good. So health was sought for itself first, and amputation second for the sake of the other, and not for itself. They both enter into the intention, but one of them is intended for itself, and the other for the sake of the first. and what is intended for its own sake takes precedence over that which is intended for the sake of the other. Here, the saying of God, great and glorious, is a purpose. My mercy precedes my anger. This, of course, is in like a hadith Qudsi. The text of the hadith, which was narrated by both Al-Bukhari and Muslim, so it's one of the highest hadith in terms of authentication, from the narration of Abu Hurairah that the Prophet ﷺ said, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the creation, when He decreed the creation, He wrote on the throne, verily my mercy preceded my anger. And this would be Hadith Qudsi, the part Inna Rahmati, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking in the first person, singular. His anger is His intending evil. So evil is by His intention, while His mercy is His intending good. After mentioning this hadith, I think there's a serious problem with the pronouns, or rather the in Arabic. Before going into the English again, ولا تسترب وأنه سبقت رحمته غضبه وأنه سبقت رحمته غضبه. So this is the part about the taken from the hadith. Then it says ولا تسترب, do not doubt that he who wills evil for evil, not for good, does not deserve the attribute, the name mercy. His anger is His intending evil. So evil is by His intention, while His mercy is His intending good. That's not really what we have in the Arabic text. That's not what it is in Arabic. Do not doubt that He who wills evil for evil, not for good, does not deserve the name mercy. Okay. So the first one, his anger is his intending evil. That's not there at all. In fact, there's much more. The hadith should have been preceded ولا تشكن أصلا في أنه أرحم الراحمين. Do not doubt as the default position that in the original position should be, do not doubt that he is the most merciful of the merciful, and that his mercy preceded his anger. And then do not doubt that he who wills evil for evil, not for good, does not deserve the name Ar-Rahman. So right after it says, my mercy precedes my anger, let me just simply count. I will start reading where we should edit and retranslate. His anger is his intending evil. So evil is by his intention, while his mercy is his intending good. So good is by his intention. But if he intended good for the good itself, yet intended evil not for itself, but because there is some good within it, then good is accomplished essentially, but evil is accomplished accidentally. And each according to divine decree. So nothing here goes against mercy at all. I think this whole paragraph yes, it needs to be reconsidered. Yeah. In fact, if we bring to the picture what Imam Al-Ghazali says about justice, is that that injustice is to behave is to take away, to cause damage to, or to violate the property of the other people, in our case, of course. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not find, in the absolute sense, anything that belongs to anyone in the real sense, since everything in the universe is his domain, his property, his kingdom. So there could be no injustice done by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The same thing about evil. The answer to your problem is that a child's mother may be tender towards him and so keep him from undergoing cupping, hijama, while the wise father makes him do it by force An ignorant person thinks that the compassionate one is the mother rather than the father, while the intelligent understand that the father's hurting him by copying reflects the perfection of his mercy and love, as well as the completeness of his compassion. Whereas the mother, whereas the mother was his enemy in the guise of a friend, since a little suffering, when it is the cause of great joy, is not evil but good. Just think today about vaccine. There is, let's call it a sect in the United States. This sect is Christian, and they come under the they are categorized under the name Christian Science, but don't think that this is science per se. At any rate, this group, I had a student in the past, literally 20 years ago. Yes, literally 20 years ago. She came from a family of Christian Science. They do not really seek medical care the way the rest of the world does. No medical care. And they think that this is really good. While in fact, this couple who did not seek medical care for their baby caused the baby to die. And they were tried and imprisoned because they did not seek medical care for their baby. If you ask them, they must have thought that this is good for the baby, that they have the freedom to pursue their way of life without medicine. But the law does not really accommodate that. So the same thing when we take babies for vaccination, it hurts. The mother does not want to see the baby crying, but you know that it's done for a greater good. Now, if a particular evil occurs to you without your seeing any good beneath it, or should you think it possible that a particular good be achieved without its being contained in evil, you should query whether your reasoning might not be deficient in each of these two trains of thought. As for saying that this evil has no good beneath it, minds simply are not up to knowing that. In this regard, you are perhaps like a boy who saw copying as nothing but an evil, or like the ignorant person who sees punishment by death as an unmitigated evil, because he is considering the particular qualities of the individual executed, for whom it is indeed a sheer evil, while overlooking the common good gained for the entire population. In fact, in the Quran, it is described as the death, let's say, of someone who committed homicide intentionally, planned, premeditated. The death, and not only death, basically retribution. There's a life for the whole community out of that. People started committing crimes, serious crimes, and they are back on the street within a very short period of time. And sometimes they are simply released because it's the first time, because they come from, a rapist in California who did not deny that he raped a young woman. His father, a wealthy father, put a team of lawyers who argued that he comes from a good family, that he was doing well, that he's all the nonsense, and literally he did not serve any time in jail because of the way the lawyers argued, though he did not deny raping the young woman. They argued about his background, his potential, his yes, he was a white boy, so that might say something. The public good, which is really a serious issue, because if the public good is left to people's whims and conjectures and those in parliaments, we have seen how they basically in many almost all Western countries and some even in other parts of the world, many things that were prohibited became legal, including certain drugs like marijuana. Gambling is legal in many countries. Prostitution is legal in many countries. Donating sperms and sperm and ovum, and there are banks for these. And you can imagine that there's one can dwell on this with many details. The public good, I don't know whether really we're talking about the same thing. Something which the good man ought not to overlook, or should question your reasoning concerning the second train of thought. When you said that it was possible that this could be attained without being contained in that evil. Here too, there is something obscure and subtle, the possibility or impossibility of everything possible or impossible cannot be perceived spontaneously, nor by a simple survey, but may perhaps be known as by an obscure, subtle discernment which the majority fails to reach. So I accuse your reasoning in both these ways, and never doubt that He, subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the most merciful of the merciful, or that His mercy takes precedence over His anger. And never doubt that the one who intends evil for the sake of evil and not for the sake of good is undeserving of the same mercy. Beneath all this lies a secret whose divulgence the revelation prohibits. So be content with prayer and do not expect that it be divulged. You have been instructed by signs and given directions, so if you are worthy of them, then ponder them. And here we have a verse of poetry. You would have been heard were you calling a living person, but there is no life in the one you call. لقد أسمعت لو ناديت حيا ولكن لا حياة لمن تنادي. This is the condition of the majority, but I do not think that you, my brother, for whom this explanation is intended, lack the capacity to ponder the secret of God, great and glorious in the divine decree. So all these hints and notices are unnecessary for you. Next is basically the attribute, the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Malik. And we'll leave it to the next session, but I have noticed that the paragraph before the verse of poetry corresponds to the paragraph that we spoke about as being problematic regarding the Arabic text. There is something missing probably from the Arabic text. I'll try to find another text that could solve this issue. And that's exactly what we will start with, inshallah, at the beginning of the next reading, right before we deal with Al-Malik, بإذن Azza wa Jal. Until then, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.